We're looking at Matchday 2 of the new Premier League season, and we're going to start with Brighton against Manchester United at 12:30 on Saturday. Prices in this one, let me just get them up actually. Brighton at 2.52, 2.64 for Manchester United, and 3.7 for the tie. Start the season, Brighton beat Everton by 3-0, and Man United laboured to a 1-0 win at home to Fulham. Paul, I'm going to give you first picks on this one. Brighton against Manchester United, what's your thinking?
Well, I think there was a bit of a surprise win last week for Brighton, wasn't it? The way that they turned over Everton. Obviously, the red card helped them out. But you can see what the new manager there is starting to do already. The high tempo, the high press, in a similar way to Jurgen Klopp talks about his heavy metal football. I think James Milner did an interview before the game last week, and he talks about what they've been working on in pre-season and what they've been working on in training. And it was evident there, and a good away win for them. Manchester United, I didn't see a lot different, in all honesty. I watched them last week against Fulham, and I don't know what you can say. I mean, it just looks like the same Man United with maybe slightly different personnel at the moment.
It's also not a happy hunting ground for Manchester United either. I know they beat them in the FA Cup semi-final on penalties when it was 0-0 at Wembley. Aside from that, this has very much been a fixture where Brighton have won, and sometimes comfortably. They've won 4 of the last 5 Premier League meetings between these two sides. Brighton have scored, the first goal in 4 of the last 5 meetings against Manchester United as well. So if this is a Manchester United side that you're kind of going, well, I don't know where they are right now, and you've got a Brighton side who have hit the ground running, surely Brighton seem a really good bet at 2.52. Do they not, Mr. Mellor?
No, I thought Brighton rode the luck last week, got away with it at Everton. Everton had a goal disallowed rightly. Everton had a penalty overturned wrongly. That's a pen all day. And also they missed an unbelievable chance at 0-0. McNeil hit the post. So I thought Brighton got away with it. So I thought the scoreline did flatter them. So you look at the scoreline, think, Brighton are really at it. Terrible end to the season for Brighton. They won 1 of the last 10 Premier League games, but up and running with that win. United, away from home, 1 clean sheet in the last 11 away Premier League games. That was at Brighton. So again, you're looking at them, did get a clean sheet against Fulham, but they got away with it. I thought Fulham didn't make the most of some good opportunities against them. Maybe Brighton might. I can't call a winner in this one. I don't see United getting beat there. I know you said they've had a terrible record. Lost 4 of the last 5 visits. And here's a little stat for you. This isn't a question. This is a stat for you. There hasn't been a draw in the league between these two since 1983. It was 1-1. Alberston scored for United. Gatting scored for Brighton. But that's 14 games. So there hasn't been a draw. So we are due a draw in this fixture in the league. And that's what I'm on. I'm on a draw.
I've got a stat for you as well. If you want a stat, we're having a stat off first thing. No former player has scored more goals against Manchester United during the Premier League era than that of Danny Welbeck. And Danny Welbeck scored for Brighton against Everton. Matoma looks in fine form as well. I thought that you probably would be more pro-Brighton in this one, Neil, because they did ride their luck a little bit against Everton, and Everton just had one of those days, but they still won fairly comfortably towards the end, where Man United laboured against Fulham, and we still don't know against Man United exactly where they are. So you're giving them a puncher's chance to get something from Brighton. What about you then, Paul? Are you all on the Brighton bandwagon, or are you also thinking Man United can get something here?
And Brighton were unpredictable to predict last year, weren't they? The amount of wins and draws and losses they had were almost even. They were a very difficult side to back or put in ACCA last year. At home, you do fancy their chances. I like the sign of Jorginho Ruta, seeing him first-hand at Leeds. I think he will add a lot of quality to that side. You look at the 3, whether it's Minter, João Pedro, Matoma, that play in behind Welbeck. Ruta just gives him another option there, and he can play as a 9, whether he starts the game or not. I think Brighton will cause Man United problems, I really do. As you say, you quite rightfully touch on Man United's poor record on the South Coast. I've got Brighton to win this one. Not by much, but I think that's where the value is. What did you say they were? 2.6, 2 point something?
Brighton at 2.52, Man United. The prices are time at the time of recording, the correct at the time of recording. 2.64 for Manchester United. Let's not forget they did win last time at Brighton by 2-0, 2 late goals, 0-0 for a large portion of the game. 3.7 for the tie.
Yeah, I fancy both teams to score. You look at what Man United have got going forward. I do think they created chances against Fulham last week. Obviously, they weren't that clinical. I fancy both teams to score and Brighton to win in this one.
What about you, Neil, if you had to nail your colours to the mast with Brighton against Manchester United?
I think we'll see goals. Yeah, I agree with Paul. Both teams to score would be a decent bet for this one. Just difficult to call a winner. In terms of goal scorers, he hit the post last week for Brighton. I think he's probably the best attacker they have. João Pedro. He's got one in his last 9 for Brighton. So you look at him and think he's better than that. He got 20 in all comps last season, only 9 in the Prem. So João Pedro to score, both teams to score in the game. I just can't call a winner. I'm on a draw for this.
It'll be interesting to get your scorelines in just a few minutes then. Also, something else to look at is the new summer signing for Brighton, Matchday, who made 4 tackles against Everton, and 2 of them were fouls. So it might be worth looking at a yellow card on the home debut for Matchday as well. So come on then, Brighton against Man United. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you still don't know exactly where both sides are. But give me a scoreline for Brighton against Man United. I'm going to go with you first, Paul. Predict it. Scoreline, please.
I think you can pretty much guess what I'm going to say from my prediction there. Both teams to score and a 2-1 Brighton win.
2-1 Brighton win. Okay, we will be talking about your score predictions and how you fared last week as well later on. One did slightly better than the other, we shall say. And Neil Mellor, what about you? Score prediction for Brighton against Man United.
Yeah, Brighton finished the season losing 4 of the last 5 at home, so they need to start better at home. United won 1 of the last 6 away in the Premier League. Draw for me. Brighton won, Manchester United won.
First time since what year was it? 1980?
83. Yes, right. I was born.
You were 1. We're not having this conversation again. You made me feel...
I wasn't even 1.
No, you weren't. You were less than 1. Me and Paul, we're moving on from this one. Next up then, that's the first game on Saturday on the South Coast. The last game on Saturday is Aston Villa against Arsenal, which is a very, very tasty affair. Both sides have started well, of course, with Villa winning away at West Ham by 2 goals, one looking absolutely threatening, surging forward, certainly with Rodgers on the ball as well. Arsenal, comfortable 2-0 win against Wolves. I tell you what, Wolves gave them a lot to think about. Villa, the prices in this one are fairly staggering. 4.4 for Aston Villa. Arsenal, 1.78. Price is correct at time of recording. 3.9 for the tie. Again, I'm going to go to you first this one, Neil. Your thoughts on Villa-Arsenal, last game on Saturday.
Good game. Yeah, really good game. Villa obviously had a brilliant season, didn't they, last season? Did the double over Arsenal. I mean, that was impressive in itself. I don't think they'll do it this season. I don't think Arsenal were at their prolific best. But I think they'll have enough. I do think Arsenal will go there and get the victory. I think Villa are a decent outfit. I just think Arsenal will go there and get a big victory. Even though it's early on in the season, I think maybe a sub, maybe the match winner in this one. I don't think it'll be an emphatic win. I think it'll be a really close game. I looked at Villa last week and I thought West Ham were in the game for large periods, but they had that little bit of quality when it was needed to win it. I think Arsenal have that. I do think that. And so, I've got Arsenal to win this one narrowly.
What about you, Paul? If anybody's been Mr. Aston Villa over the course of the last 12 months and spotting the potential of Aston Villa, and you did predict that they would finish top 4 last season, and they did, do you think Villa are too big at 4.4? Is that worth a bit of a stake for you?
Listen, I was backing Arsenal going into this game, but when you told me those odds, Villa at home, when you look at their home record last year, I haven't got it to hand, but their win percentage at home was frightening last year. They were a very, very good team at home. They scored a lot of goals. They're taking on Arsenal side. I was at the Emirates on Saturday for the Wolves game, and they dominated most of the game, but they did have a little scare just after half-time. Wolves had a spell, 15, 20 minutes after half-time, where they could have got something out of that game without really creating David Raya that many problems. David Raya made a really good save just before half-time to keep it at 1-0. And then when Arsenal got the second goal, that was it. It was game over. They dominated the game. The back four and the goalkeeper for Arsenal, they look strong again. Calafiori looks like he's going to have to bide his time to get into that team. Odegaard, Partey and Rice in midfield. The interesting thing for Arsenal this season is with Partey playing, Odegaard and Rice were deployed so much further up the field. Declan Rice was finding himself on the left wing at times. So maybe before some bookmakers get onto this, Declan Rice is worth a goal at some point this season because he really is playing a lot more advanced. He had 2 or 3 shots in that first half against Wolves and he was quite clearly playing higher up the pitch. Villa at home, a huge price. I would have been tipping Arsenal on without knowing the prices, but I won't be putting them in an acca, but I think that 4s, Villa are incredible value for their record at home.
Yeah, bearing in mind their record at home at the start of last season as well was brilliant. I was played 8, won 8. The bizarrely, last season at home for Aston Villa, they actually kept clean sheets at home to Manchester City, won 1-0. They actually kept a clean sheet at home to Arsenal as well, but pretty much conceded to everybody else at home, including the likes of Sheffield United and Burnley, who went there and scored goals. I will tell you now that 74% of games at Villa Park last season, both teams to score landed. As Neil said, Aston Villa did the double over Arsenal. They were the only team to do that. Arsenal didn't even score against Aston Villa either. They were the only side to fail to find the back of the net against as well. So this is a bit of a revenge job for Arteta. The interesting thing is the XG for Arsenal was higher in both games. So it's a bit of a split opinion on this one as well, because it might be one of those where, as you've said, Paul, you quite fancy Arsenal, and then you see that Villa price and you go, do you know what? If there's anyone who can beat Arsenal, it is this Villa side. So this will be very, very interesting.
Maybe want to cover your bets for the afternoon. If you do fancy Arsenal, back Arsenal, but have a little side bet on Villa to cover the cost of your bets for the whole day.
Well, it opens up the 4.4 for Aston Villa. Really opens up the Aston Villa +1, the Aston Villa double chance to draw no bet, which is funny because Aston Villa have actually drawn 3 of the last 4 games at home. So any chance that Villa can walk away from anything with this? A point good enough for them, I assume it is, against Arsenal. Neil?
Well, this is where my question comes into it. There hasn't been a draw in the last 18 meetings between these two teams. And so the question is, the last draw, Villa 0, Arsenal 0, was 2010. I want to know who were the goalkeepers. Who were the goalkeepers? Who were the goalkeepers that day? Villa and Arsenal, 2010. That was the last time there was a draw between these two teams. Who were the goalies?
Manninger in goal for Arsenal. Is that about that era, or was that before?
I'll give you the nationalities. Have a guess first, and then I'll give you the nationalities. It might help. So you've got Manninger for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think he's. That's too late for him, though, isn't it?
Chesney.
Yeah.
Wojciech Chesney.
Chesney for Arsenal. Are we having a Villa goalkeeper, I guess, as well, or not?
2010.
2010.
Not Bosnich.
Brad Friedel.
So before I give you a clue, Paul's nailed one of them. Brad Friedel was the Aston Villa goalkeeper. The Arsenal goalkeeper is the one you're struggling with, and this is where you get a clue. He was Spanish. Do you want to know the letter it starts with? Is that too?
I was going to say Flappy Hansky, but he's Polish, isn't he?
I've got producer Will showing me, but I can't see. My eyesight's not that good enough. I've got a frustration that producer Will's got the answer and I haven't.
It begins with A. There you go. You get it now.
Right. So I have got help. So I'm not going to take credit for this one, but I think it's Manuel Almunia.
Oh, Almunia.
That was the last time there was a draw.
That was the last time Almunia kept a clean sheet as well.
Yeah. See, bless him. If he's watching this podcast, it's like, surely I did more than that to be remembered in goal for Arsenal. I'm not taking credit for that. There is no way I'm taking credit for that. But that was producer Will who gave me that, so there's no way I'm taking credit for that.
But what you have just done is revealed your hand that you do cheat on questions, that you got held through the glass. There you go. Well, we're not in studio, that's what happens, is it?
Yeah, you're not going to trust me forevermore with any question. Surely 0-0 is not the scoreline we're going to get, though, between these two sides. Look at Villa at home, 3-3 against Liverpool, 2-2 against Chelsea, 3-1 against Bournemouth. I know this is towards the end of last season. 3-3 at home to Brentford as well. We could be looking at the game of the weekend here, couldn't we, Paul? Villa against Arsenal. It could be a bit of a goal fest. Last time Arsenal won at Villa Park, it was 4-2. So whoever you're backing in this one, you could be looking at quite a number of goals.
Could be looking at goals, yeah, but then there's the argument for the Arsenal defence and the way that they've played and their stats and the way that they perform. Gabriel Saliba looked like they picked up from where they left off last time. They got exposed at Arsenal against Wolves down the right-hand side. Their left-back, Zinchenko, played. I think when he tucks in as an inverted full-back into that midfield, I think he's a great asset to the team. But I think the only weakness in that Arsenal back four is the left-back area. And Wolves played Hwang out on that side and cutting in the crosses that came in. It was the left-back area. So defensively, I would back Arsenal to keep a clean sheet. But you look at what Villa have got in Bailey, Rodgers, McGinn, Watkins, depending on who plays and what they've got now coming off the bench. Duran, Philogene, Ross Barkley in there. They've got a lot of creativity. They've got a decent team. I back Villa for a goal, but I do fancy Arsenal to win.
And you're the same, Neil. Are you going for goals in this one?
Yeah, I think I'd always have to back Villa at home. Paul mentioned some of the players there. Buendia didn't even get on the pitch, did he, last weekend? So I think they've got enough quality, even though Arsenal are superb defensively, to get a goal. I just think Arsenal will find a winner from somebody late on in the game. Maybe a sub, someone like a Trossard. He's got 4 in his last 7 games. So I'm going both teams to score, but Arsenal just to win it.
Last time these teams played, it was 2-0 for Aston Villa, who won at Arsenal, and they only had 2 shots on goal and scored with both. So that's the absolute definition of clinical for Aston Villa. Beat Arsenal home and away last season, beat them 1-0 at home, 2-0 away. Let's go for the correct score in this one, starting with Neil. Last game on Saturday, Villa, big price, 4.4. Arsenal, 1.78, 3.9 for the tie. Neil, score prediction, please.
Good game, close game. The stats show it's not going to be a draw. We haven't had one for ages. There is due one, but I'm going to go for an Arsenal away victory, 2-1.
Okay, 2-1. Thank you very much. And Paul, Villa against Arsenal.
So I've got written down as well. Do I change it? You can't change it this early on in the season. That's exactly what I've got written down. I've got 2-1 Arsenal. I did have 2-0 Arsenal, but then I talked myself into a Villa goal when I've just looked at the team and the squad and the players. 2-1 Arsenal. Stick with it.
Thank you. Last time Arsenal won at Aston Villa, that well-known Spanish goalkeeper Martinez did score an own goal. So hopefully he has a better day at the office this time around. Next game, we're moving to a 2 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. This is Wolves against Chelsea. Another big price for a home side here. Wolves are 4.5. Chelsea are 1.74. That's very interesting. Can you trust Chelsea at under 2 to get the job done at Molineux? 4 for the tie. Paul, you can have the first picks on this one. Sunday afternoon, Wolves against Chelsea. Your thoughts, please.
Who knows? Who knows what you're going to get with Chelsea? I mean, they've got that Euro qualifying game. I think it's tonight as well as we talk. So all the upheaval about Raheem Sterling. You look at the Conor Gallagher saga, the João Felix saga, signing players and everything off the pitch. My prediction at 9th is looking far too lofty for them at the moment. I'm not even sure they're going to make that the way that they played last week. Listen, Wolves are what they are. They're going to struggle this year, Wolves, having watched them at Arsenal. They've got a really good manager in Gary O'Neill. He sets them up in a way where he gets a performance out of them. You can see out of possession how structured they are. They played a back 4, actually. I was expecting them to play a back 3, but they played a back 4 with Doherty, Totti, Mosquera and Ait-Nouri. Ait-Nouri's a good player. Ait-Nouri's going to get some goals this season for Wolves from left back because he allows him to roam into midfield. He's a decent bet for a goal at some point, is Ait-Nouri. I like Wolves. I like Gary O'Neill. I like what they do, but I think it's going to be a tough season for them. Chelsea, honestly, who knows? I mean, you look at the squad that he's picked for the Premier League. You look at the squad that he's picked for the European competitions. There's going to be a lot of unhappy players at Chelsea. You can only keep 11 happy every week, and that's the 11 that you play. It's how you manage the rest. I think he's got a really big job on there. They're going to be hard to predict until we see any kind of rhythm going through this Chelsea team.
Yeah, so I've always said that football teams are a little bit like icebergs for football fans. You only see the very tip. You don't really see what goes on behind the scenes. So I think football fans would be surprised about how many bust-ups there are on training grounds and, how things are not always rosy behind the scenes. But obviously there's a united front that the football team puts on every Saturday, every Tuesday night when they play football. We're together as one. We want to win. But it's not always the case behind the scenes. And then every now and then you get a glimpse of that. And I think Chelsea have shown that with Raheem Sterling. So it's quite abundantly clear that everything is not right behind the scenes at Chelsea. Enzo Maresca's come out and said, you know what, this rumour that we've got 41 players and I'm training with 41 players, that's rubbish. I'm only training with 26. The other 20-odd, I don't know where they are. So that also says, well, thanks, Gaffer, I don't know where I am then. But that's brilliant. So can you trust this Chelsea side at 1.74 when it's all abundantly clear it's not okay behind the scenes, Neil?
No, it's not. No, I mean, Raheem Sterling's the only one who's come out publicly. But I think, like you say, there must be 15, 20 other players thinking the same. So that's not good for Chelsea. I don't think it's right. I don't know how the Premier League have allowed Chelsea to sign so many players. Surely there has to be a limit because Chelsea are now treating players in a way which no football club should be treating them. I get what the manager's saying. He's got his group of players and the rest are nowhere near this group. So he is working on this group, what he wants and getting his ideas across. I look at Chelsea and I think they will get going this season. And I think they've got a lot of quality. I mean, the midfield that started against City, I looked at that and thought, God, that's outstanding. You've got Enzo Fernandez in there. You've got Lavia, who looks, okay, he's back fit now, looks really good. Caicedo. So I think that's a really strong midfield. I think they'll create chances. I think they'll miss chances with Jackson. I don't think he's clinical enough, but I think they will get chances. And that's what I'm looking at this fixture and going, fancy Chelsea to get chances. Do I fancy Wolves to create that many chances? Not sure I do. I'd be on Chelsea to win this one, despite all the problems that's going on in terms of players there, the unrest, who's going, are they going to sign anyone else? But I'd actually be on Chelsea to win this game. Wolves did the double over Chelsea last season, which is incredible. And so my question's this. Here we go. I've got a question for you again. Hopefully it don't take as long. It's not Spanish related, but here we go. English.
I'm out. Come on,
English related. So actually, Chelsea haven't won in the last 4 visits to Wolves. Last time they won was 2019, 5-2. Which player scored an own goal who was English, but also scored a hat-trick in the game?
So scored a hat-trick for Wolves, but also scored an own goal?
Last time Chelsea won was 2019.
So it's for Chelsea. Scored a hat-trick for Chelsea, but also scored an own goal.
Scored an own goal as well. 5-2 they won.
Raheem Sterling.
No. Gav's got a chance. Is his producer quick enough to get it? Or is Gav going to...
Google away in Google. Producer Google's on it.
I mean, I've got...
English.
That's what throws me, English, because you think the only English people I can think play for Chelsea were the likes of Frank Lampard and John Terry. I can't think of a...
5 years ago.
Yeah. I know, this is...
We still play him. I think he did leave the country to play in a different country.
I see even producer Willie stumped on this one, so I really are stumped this side.
The own goal froze you, but he scored a hat-trick in the game.
English.
Striker at Roma.
Oh, Abraham. Tammy Abraham.
There we go. An assist from Paul. And just tapped in on the line from Gav.
That's it. Do you know, it's one of those, isn't it, where everyone rushes to the goal scorer, but it was the assist maker who put me in on goal. So all credit to Paul Robinson on that one. But technically that is me. So 1-0 to Gav. Thanks very much. I'll take that. I have to take what I've got. Thank you, Paul. But that's the funny thing. We talk about the head-to-heads. Actually, in the last 8 meetings between these two sides, Chelsea have won just one of them. Now, I know there is an argument that head-to-heads don't really matter, but fans remember this stuff. Chelsea fans will be looking at Wolves going, we never beat Wolves. You know, the last 8 meetings between these two sides, Wolves have won 4 of them. Chelsea have only won 1. The others have been draws. Chelsea got battered by Wolves at home. I know they got Pedro Neto, who switched from Wolves to Chelsea. But surely Chelsea are 1.74 to trust them back, aren't they, Paul? I can't trust them.
I ain't trusting Chelsea, not yet. Not until they get onto a run like they did at the end of last season under Pochettino when they were winning games and you knew what they were about. I don't think they know what they're about. I don't think anybody who's watching Chelsea knows what they're about at the moment. I ain't taking them on, not at that price. 1.7, 1 point something. Chelsea at 1 point anything, not taking them on at all. Wolves at home, like I said to you, they all buy into what Gary O'Neill does. Molineux was a tough place to go last year. I fancy Wolves. They're a big price at home. I ain't putting them in my ACCA, but I might have a single on them.
As we said with Aston Villa, 4.5 for Wolves opens up an all manner of betting opportunities with plus a goal, draw no bet. Even for possible Wolves to score both halves or something like that will be very tasty because it's quite clear that the price is all in Chelsea's favour. Do you not give Wolves any hope at all here with that head-to-head record, Neil?
No, not at all. I don't think they have goals. I look at Wolves, I don't think they'll score enough goals this season. The home record, they beat Fulham, Sheffield United and Luton in the last 9 Premier League games. They lost the other 6. So it wasn't a fortress come the end of the season. They've lost key players. Cunha came off the bench, had a chance at Arsenal. Maybe should have done better. I think he's so important for them. I like it, Nori as well. But I just don't think there's enough there. I think Chelsea will go there and get the win. And if Jackson fancies it and is clinical, he could get himself a hat-trick. I just don't think he will. I think he'll miss 2 or 3 of them. 2 chances. I think he'll get a goal, though. I'd be backing Jackson to score because I think he'll get chances with how Chelsea play. So Chelsea to win this and Chelsea to 0. I wouldn't give Wolves a goal.
Well, I will tell you that the last time Chelsea got a draw at Wolves was back in 2021, which did finish 0-0. There was a spell where these games were unders, and then suddenly they've exploded into life with 2-1s, 3-1s, and 4-2s. Last time Wolves played at Chelsea, it was at Chelsea. Cunha, who you mentioned, did of course score a hat-trick. Something to look out for in this game as well. In the last 5 meetings between Wolves and Chelsea, there's been a total of 6 goals scored in the final 10 minutes. There always tends to be a late goal between Wolves and Chelsea. Another fairly big price here with the home side. At the time of recording, prices were correct. 4.5 for Wolves, Chelsea 1.74. Score prediction in this one, the tie, if you fancy it, is 4. Wolves against Chelsea. Paul, you get first picks on this one. Score prediction, please.
I don't think it matters who gets first pick here because we both disagree on this one. I can't back Chelsea to do anything at the moment. I'm going Wolves 2-0 at home.
Oh, 2-0 at home. I'll tell you what, let me just have a quick look if I can get the price on that, because if Wolves are a fairly big price at 4.5 to win, 2-0 could be massive and is therefore worth putting up. 2-0, 23. Oh, we'll watch that one. 23, that's a fairly big price. Go on then, Neil.
Completely agree with the scoreline, 2-0, but for Chelsea.
Wow.
So I can't see that being as high as 23s.
I like it when you completely and utterly disagree. This is brilliant. Okay, so 2-0 for Wolves, for Paul, 2-0 for Chelsea. Because actually, to be fair, you're thinking in your predictions, you're actually always around, the same ballpark generally, but this is a complete division. Yours is 9, by the way. So 9 for Chelsea to win by 2-0. The final game of the weekend, we'll switch to Anfield. Liverpool taking on Brentford. 1.28 for Liverpool. Brentford are 11. 5.8 for the tie. 2 fairly comfortable victories for Liverpool against Brentford last season. But if you look a little bit closer, the shots from both sides were absolutely ridiculous. Where it was 4-1 to Liverpool last time out when they played at Brentford. But both sides had 15 shots apiece. And at Anfield, where Liverpool won 3-0, it was 16 shots for Brentford and 17 for Liverpool. So the last couple of games between these two sides have been very open-ended, but in scoreline, a one-way victory for Liverpool. Is that going to be the same this time? Is it a comfortable Liverpool victory for you, Neil?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it'd be a surprise if it wasn't. Liverpool. Anfield's been an absolute fortress. Brentford have had real troubles going there. In the few seasons that they've been in the Premier League, I think the only defeat for Liverpool last season was to Palace. It was 1-0 to Palace, but it should have been 5 or 6-1 to Liverpool. Liverpool had 7 big chances in the game, which they wasted. And that was a problem for Liverpool last season, missing big chances. Last week at Ipswich, they had 6 big chances. They scored 2 of those goals. It could have been more emphatic, probably should have been. So, yeah, Liverpool will create the chances. It's just how clinical they are. Brentford, I think Brentford will be okay this season. They got a great victory on Matchday 1. Without Tony, I think that Lumen isn't a help for Brentford. I really don't think that. They need that resolved as soon as possible. It's clear he's not going to be staying at Brentford. He's not going to be playing, which is good news for Liverpool. But it's getting him out of the door and getting that situation resolved, and then Brentford can move forward. Really liking Buemo. I think he's the player I look at Brentford and think he could kick on and play Champions League football. So he can be a problem, and he was last season. I think he had a goal disallowed for Brentford. So, Brentford haven't scored at Anfield in the 3 times they've been there in the Premier League recently. A clean sheet for Liverpool. Can we do it? And I'm saying we because I'm Liverpool. 1 clean sheet in 11 at home for Liverpool. That was an area Liverpool had to improve. And I think we can get a clean sheet. Liverpool to win 2-0 would be the safe bet for me.
They are such a funny strike force, aren't they, Brentford? Because nobody really fancies Embremo or Visser to put in their fantasy Premier League side. And yet these guys are always scoring goals, as they proved against Crystal Palace. They were rather fortunate against Crystal Palace, weren't they? With that disallowed goal for Palace. But they still got 3 points on the board in a game that generally always ends a draw. What's your thinking in this one then, Paul? Liverpool against Brentford?
You don't back anybody to go to Anfield. From mid-table downwards there and get anything. You look outside the top 4 and you're struggling to back teams to go to Anfield. Like Neil said, the home record last season was near on perfect, apart from that Palace game. Went to Anfield a few times last season. And even when they're not at the best, they still look like they're going to win a game. And that's the thing. that they found that resilience, and they found the way to win games without keeping clean sheets at times as well. You look at the way that they dealt with Ipswich last week. It was potentially a banana skin, but we all said on here they've got the quality, they've got the players, they've got the attacking prowess to take care of that game and the experience, and they have. Whether they bring any signings in between now and the weekend, I don't think his side's going to change that much. You can see what he was trying to do against Ipswich. I think the side will pretty much be the same. You've got Gakpo, Konate, Nunez, who could potentially come in at some point or off the bench. You can't back against Liverpool at home. You really can't. There's going to be no value in them. I mean, you put Liverpool in your ACCA, among others, but it's Liverpool. It's how many and who scores them. Potential way in with cards and bookings from a Brentford point of view as well, because you fancy they're going to spend most of Sunday afternoon running around after the ball.
Well, that's the funny thing. That's as I said last time they played at Anfield, they had 16 shots at goal, and they also had more corners, 8 corners to Brentford, 6 for Liverpool. So even though the scoreline said Liverpool won by 3-0 last time they played at Anfield, Brentford actually went there and had a proper go and hurt Liverpool. They hurt Liverpool in both games, and yet collectively lost 7-1 across both of them. They're a little bit more clinical. They may get something in terms of a goal only at Anfield.
Would you have 7-1 over 2 games? It sounds like Liverpool would really hurt.
Just far more clinical. I know, it's just far more clinical. But that's the thing with Liverpool against Brentford. This is only the 7th meeting between these two sides. If you remember the first, when Brentford first came up and everyone's like, oh, Brentford, this is a story. Do you remember that game, Neil? What happened?
Was that the 3-3?
That was the 3-3. And that's the thing with Liverpool. The previous 6 meetings between these two sides, Liverpool have scored over 2.5 goals against Brentford in 5 of those 6. They scored 3, they've scored 3, they've scored 1. In fact, it's 4 out of 6. They beat the Brentford 3-0 and 4-1. So when Liverpool generally play Brentford, they're scoring 3s and 4s. So if you want to boost the price of Liverpool for 1.28, you've got to go for goals in this one. Same as, I think you both agree with that, don't you? That it's just Liverpool and goals?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you give Brentford one? That's it.
That's the question.
Brentford haven't scored at Anfield since 1937. Hey,
who was that then? Come on, the question. Who was it?
You were born, Gav. You tell us.
That was a gut punch. Sorry, I'm just recovering from that one. What I will tell you, by the way, is that Diogo Jota notched in last season's corresponding fixture against Brentford, and he scored 3 goals against Brentford, so he's got a fairly good record as well. And he's scored, in fact, both players, of course, Liverpool, who scored against Ipswich in that 2-0 win with Salah, have got a fairly good goal-scoring record against Brentford. So if you want to look a little bit deeper, go for goal scorers. Those two are well worth looking at. So Liverpool against Brentford, your final game of Matchday 2 of the Premier League. Neil, I'm going to come to you first for score predictions. What's your scoreline from Anfield?
Yeah, Liverpool to win 2-0. I'm going to go for a goal scorer as well. And there you go. How many games do you think this lad has gone without scoring for Liverpool? Luis Diaz could have had a hat-trick last week. Could have had a couple of assists. How many games do you think he's gone for Liverpool without scoring?
10.
Luis.
Paul said 10. My first thought was 11.
Yeah, he's not clinical. He's not ruthless, but he's always involved in chances. So I think he'll get a couple of chances. It is 10 games. He's gone 10 games without scoring for Liverpool, and he looked sharp last week. He didn't score, but I'd be having him down to score this week. He did look sharp. Salah looks irresistible at the moment. Salah's a banker to score, but maybe Luis Diaz, maybe a surprise name to some because he hasn't scored in 10. Diaz to score, Liverpool to win 2-0. I've got 3-0.
3-0. Thank you very much. 1-1 between me and Paul as well in the quizzes this morning. In fact, I think I'll take Manuel Almunia. Yeah, I'll take that. Paul, I'm taking what I can get. After the kidney punch you gave me 5 minutes ago, I'm taking it all. There's no leniency here. Liverpool against Brentford, your score predictions, please.
Well, I've got 4-1, 4-0 and 3-1 written down, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Do I give Brentford a goal? I give Brentford a goal, 4-1.
Oh, 4-1. Okay.
I hope it is for some close to the game, so I hope it is 4-1.
Yeah. Well, that was the scoreline last time they played, but that was at Brentford. So 4-1. In fact, I give some prices on this one. I'll give a little bit of colour and go for the prices in this one. The biggest price we've had so far is a 23, which was Paul's prediction of 2-0 for Wolves, 4-1 for Liverpool. It's 13. I mean, it's a fairly big price, but it's no 23. Your 3-0 is 9, exactly the same as last time. So those are the 4 big games that we're focusing on this weekend. What we're going to do now is look at the score predictions. Always, by the way, whatever your bets are, please do gamble responsibly. Before we get into the score predictions of this week, let's look at the score predictions of last week. I will tell you now that only one of you nailed some correct scores. The way it works is 3 points for correct score, 1 point for a correct result, and absolutely nothing for being disastrously wrong. And I have to say that you nailed it this weekend, Paul. You did very well. You predicted Forest Bournemouth 1-1. You predicted Arsenal to win 2-0. And therefore, overall, looking at the points, you are 10-5 up. You won the first week. So in another way of putting it is for every point that Neil got last weekend, you got 2. What do you have to say to that?
No prizes given out the first weekend of the season. It's a long season. My record last year wasn't great, so I'm not going to sit here chirping at the moment.
I have to say, well done to Neil, because I know he's itching to say this as well. He did put up a treble and it did land as well. So well done, Neil, on your treble that landed.
Thank you. Yeah, and I lost week 1 last week to Paul. Lost 2 of my first 3 weeks, but just cruised to victory in the end. So I'm expecting something similar. Expect a response, Paul.
It was quite funny because on the WhatsApp group, Neil created a new game, the treble game.
Yeah,
I'll lose that one, so I'll create another game.
That's why I mentioned it.
I've got my treble again.
Let's go through this then. Brilliant. Let's go through this. As always, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Right. Let's have a look at the other games then that are taking place this weekend in the Premier League. Crystal Palace taking on West Ham United. Palace at 2.16. West Ham at 3.25, 3.65 for the tie. Crystal Palace got off, both these teams got off to a defeat. Palace away at Brentford, of course, and West Ham at home to Aston Villa. I'm going to go for Neil in this one. Your score prediction for Crystal Palace against West Ham, please.
Yeah, by the way, how on earth is that Eze goal disallowed? Absolutely fuming with that one. Why are you blowing your whistle? And why are you looking at an incident nowhere near where the ball's going? Anyway,
it was just instinct, wasn't it? It was like the old school of refereeing, where now you're introducing that little bit of patience for VAR to come and have a look. But occasionally the referees forget themselves and go, "Oh, that's a foul blow," and then goes, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's not the way we do it these days." Surely that's all it was, wasn't it?
Big moment, 0-0. You know, the first goal felt as though it was crucial. I don't think Palace would have lost the game. Do you know what? Fair play to Eze and the Palace manager afterwards. I thought they were so dignified with such a big moment in the game going against them. So I thought that was really classy. The referee made a mistake. You know, yeah, we can't get on his back too much, but it was a big mistake. Here we go. For this game, the last 14 times they've played, both teams have scored. I can't believe I'm saying that about Palace, but yeah, they have. So both teams are scoring this game. Banker, 1-1.
Okay, 1-1. I'm going to tell you, the scorelines, this is one of those fixtures, as my granddad would say, if this game was played at the bottom of my garden, I'd close the curtains. That's the kind of feeling you get between Crystal Palace and West Ham. But we have had some absolute crackers between Crystal Palace and West Ham. Your score prediction, before I go through the scorelines previously between these two sides, Paul?
Yeah, I'm keeping the curtains closed as well. I'm all over a 1-1. After the first week of the season, Palace got beat at Brentford. West Ham lost at home. I think you're going to watch two teams here who don't want to win a game but don't want to lose a game. The most important thing for these two this weekend is not to lose the game. Hence the reason that I think we will get a 1-1 draw.
The last time these teams drew 1-1 at Sellers Park was 2016. Mark Noble scored for West Ham that day, and it was Wilfred Zaha who equalised for Palace. That was the last 1-1 between these two sides. Scorelines, should we just go through these very quickly at Crystal Palace between these two sides going past? 5-2 Crystal Palace last season, 7-goal thriller between these two sides. Previous to that, 4-3. Sorry, it was another 7-goal thriller. The last two games at Sellers Park between these two sides have been 7-goal thrillers. Previous to that, Crystal Palace 2, West Ham 3. 7 goals, 5 goals. That's what we've had between these two sides gone past. And yet you go, yeah, I can't remember those games. Belters. But you've gone for 1-1. Tie is 3.65. Right, next time, good luck. Fulham against Leicester City. Oh, surely Leicester are one of the weirdest sides that we saw in Matchday 1. They were getting absolutely battered and then could have won against Spurs. What a bizarre game that was. Fulham are 1.82. News from today that obviously we know that Polina's left Fulham. They were looking for a signing. They appear to have confirmed the signing of Sander Berg from Burnley. He looks like he's joining Craven Cottage and joining Fulham. Leicester are 4.3, 3.85 for the tie. Paul, first picks on Fulham against Leicester.
Another tough one to call, isn't it? I was at the Leicester-Spurs game on Monday. Spurs absolutely outplayed them. There should have been 3 or 4 up at half-time. Should have been out of sight. But you give Leicester credit and Steve Cooper what he did. Kept his team in the same shape, same formation, and they kept on going at what they did. They got one opportunity and Vardy took it. Whether Vardy plays again with the turnaround, he spoke after the game quite openly, didn't he, about his recovery, about, he potentially wasn't even fit. I think that Steve Cooper said the game was Monday night. If the game was Saturday, he wouldn't have played. He wasn't fit enough to play. So that's one thing they'll have to do. They're going to have to manage Vardy's minutes this season, and he's going to be a huge part of what they do if they are to stay in this league. That points deduction still looming over them. That'll give them a big lift, that point against Spurs. It will have felt like a win for them. Going to Fulham, these are the games where they've got to pick up points, though, isn't it? As you say, Sander Berger going into Fulham, not really sure. He's just going to solidify the midfield. I don't think he's going to set the world on fire going forwards. He's a stereotypical number 6. Take the ball off the defence, take the ball off the back 4, start the play, break play down and give it to others. Tough one to call this. Leicester will want to go there and get something. It's a tough away place to go. I'm going to tip Fulham just to win. I think they've got enough going forward. With Traore, I think he'll cause the fullbacks problems with his pace. Iwobi down the left. Fulham to win 2-0.
Thank you. Yeah, if ever the footballing cliche of goals change games, that was if there's ever one game that proves that to be correct, it's that Leicester equaliser, wasn't it, against Spurs, because it was all Spurs out of nowhere. Jamie Vardy sticks to the back of that, and then suddenly Spurs are hanging on towards the end, and Vardy with that shot towards the end that was saved should have actually probably done better, and it could have been all 3 points for Leicester when it looked like they were going to get battered by 3 or 4. Fulham against Leicester, your score prediction, please, Neil.
Yeah, Fulham were a little bit wasteful at Old Trafford. I think I'm looking at this and thinking they'll get the first points of the season. I don't think Leicester will score too many goals. That'll be a problem for them this season. Vardy scored. But yeah, I don't see them scoring. So Fulham to 0 is something that I would be backing. But whether it's 1-0, 2-0, I'm going to go for 1-0. Leicester have won 1 in 41 years at Fulham. What a terrible record they've got there. 1 in 41 years. It was 5-3 last time these met. Fulham 5, Leicester 3. There is no way there'll be 8 goals in this game. Fulham 1, Leicester 0 for me.
Famous last words. No way. But again, like we've just gone with Crystal Palace against West Ham, these games don't stick in your mind, and yet we can all remember the Liverpool 4-3s against Newcastle from generations ago, yet the 5-3 at Craven Cottage, remember that? Not a clue. Last time Leicester failed to score at Fulham, by the way, was back in 2003. Fulham won 2-0. Luis Boe-Morte with a double all the way back. The interesting thing, you look at head-to-head sometimes and go, yeah, but this was a very different Leicester side to then, because it was a resident of the Premier League. It was a Premier League champion, and now they're coming up as the side just from the Championship. So Leicester, a little bit of a question mark. You don't know what you're going to get, but you've gone for them to be beaten. Southampton against Forest is where we're going next at 2.52 for Southampton. They got off to a bad start at Newcastle. Pretty much were the team on Matchday 1 who had more shots than anybody else, and yet lost 1-0 to 10-man Newcastle. Forest 2.78. They'll be disappointed that they didn't hang on to get all 3 points at home to Bournemouth. 3.45 for the tie. Neil, your first pick on Southampton against Forest.
I think Southampton might have surprised a few people how much they had to go at Newcastle. I know they had to play against 10 men for a long time, but created some good chances. You know, they weren't clinical, they weren't ruthless. On another day, could quite easily have won that game, which would have been a massive win for them. But they have been beaten. I think the comfort will be they've not given loads of chances away. And so you're thinking, how many chances will they give away against Forest? Forest 1-1, first game. I'm looking at this and thinking, Southampton haven't beaten Forest since 2011. A Ricky Lambert hat-trick. I am on Southampton to win this game, narrowly. I think we'll have goals, both teams to score, and Southampton to win this one, 2-1.
Southampton to win by 2 goals to 1. What about you, Paul? What are you fancying on the South Coast here?
Can we say this is 6 points already? It's a massive game, isn't it?
Well, I genuinely thought that. I went earlier because I thought Forest against Bournemouth was potentially a 6-pointer. These are sides you've got to win if you want to, because you drop 2 points now, it will make a difference in May in 9 months' time. So yeah, I agree with you.
It doesn't feel like it now, does it? Earlier in the season, you feel like you've got plenty of time to make it up, but titles and relegations are decided on 1 or 2 points. You drop points at this stage of the season, it's the same as dropping them at the end of the season. I see this as a game where neither side will want to lose it. I think it'll be cagey. I don't think it'll be open and free-flowing. Southampton give a really good account of themselves last week against Newcastle. Forest at home, I think they were what we were expected. They've got the firepower to score goals with Chris Wood especially. I'm going to sit on the fence and going 1-1. I think both teams will be quite happy with that, 1 each.
If Forest do win this game, it will be their third consecutive away victory. They stayed up with the help of last season, winning away at Burnley and then winning away at Sheffield United. They were their 2 final away games of last season, so this is their first of this. If they do win, it's 3 consecutive away victories in the top flight since 1995. That is how long it was since Forest last did that. Does anybody remember Southampton's last home game in the Premier League? It wasn't too long ago. Do you remember it?
I do. Liverpool, 4-4.
4-4, yeah. No one talks about it, do they? Another crack, and you go, no, can't remember that one. Southampton 4, Liverpool 4. Last time these teams met, do you remember what the scoreline was between Forest and Southampton? Do you remember?
0-0.
4-3 to Forest. Again, absolute belters. You've gone for Southampton 1-1, Paul, in this one with Forest. The draw is 3.45. If any of you are really eagle-eyed, you'll have realised that I accidentally skipped Man City against Ipswich. We should have been talking about them next. So we're going to go back to Man City against Ipswich. And I'm going to say something which I might get ridiculed for in this one. Man City are 1.1, Ipswich are 19, 12.5 for the tie. I think it's really unfair that a newly promoted side from the Championship, and I know what you're going to say, you've got to play everybody once, but I think it's really unfair if you start at home to Liverpool and then you're away at Manchester City, because you haven't pretty much got a cat-in-house chance of picking up any points. And I know you've got to play them, but you're already looking at 2 defeats after 2 games, because I don't think we're banking on Ipswich to get anything from this one. And that really can, hurt a team at the start of the season, because the pressure's on the third game. They lose that. They're looking at play 3, lost 3, bottom of the table, and other teams around them are already 5, 6 points clear. I think it's really unfair, but that's what it is. Neil, your first pick on this one then. Man City against Ipswich. This will be interesting.
5, 6, 7. So Ipswich have won 7 of the last 9 games against City. Good record. Well, that was a long time ago. The last time they met in the Premier League. Man City 2, Ipswich 3. Marcus Stewart got 2, and Herman Hreidarsson got a goal for Ipswich. That is, imagine that result for Ipswich this time. 3-2 away at City. We would all love that. It's not happening. Are they going to score a goal? I think that's the only question. Do you have City to 0, or can Ipswich nick a goal? But yeah, for me, it's how many for Man City. Get a goal scorer in there as well. Take your pick. Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne, Haaland, Foden, maybe all of them to score. I've got 5. I've settled for 5. I think it'll be a tough afternoon for Ipswich. 5-0 for City. 5-0
for Manchester City. It's interesting because actually the last 6 meetings between these two sides, Ipswich have won 4 of them. But you can tell they haven't played each other all too often in the recent Premier League era. So 5-0 for Manchester City. What's interesting about this is Kieran McKenna, as a football manager, obviously he gets Ipswich on the front foot. They've scored plenty of goals. So this is the first time we're going to see Kieran McKenna with the challenge of, well, you've now got to go and set up defensively. You've now got to play counter-attack football, because if you do go to Man City and you go, right, we're going to take you on, you're going to get potentially absolutely battered. So, I always think for a newly promoted side, the best thing you can do with Man City is keep it tight with 15 minutes to go and either hang on for a draw is the best you can offer, or if you're 1-0 down, take the shackles off and see what you can do. Otherwise, if you're 4-0 down at half-time, you're absolutely no chance. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Ipswich approach this. What about you, Paul? Your thoughts on Man City, Ipswich?
Yeah, but why would you be so submissive if that's what's brought you the success? Well, that style of football. Go and have a go at Manchester City. We've seen teams like Brentford go there, Crystal Palace go there. Not necessarily teams that you would fancy. Of course, there's got to be some kind of pragmatic way of playing. You've got to be defensive minded. You can't just go open and leave a load of spaces. But if the style of football has brought you success, quite often teams do that against Manchester City. They're really submissive, allow Manchester City possession, and they just wait for them to score rather than actually having a go at them. There's got to be a balance. Listen, it's tough. We can all sit here and say, oh, this is how you play against Manchester City, but none of us are sat in the dugout trying to put a team out to play Manchester City. This could be, Ipswich could get hurt. I think Mel's is right. This is 4, 5, 6 picky goal scorers. Man City and Uraka, absolute banker of the weekend, this one. Do Ipswich sign Brozier in time that he plays? Does he give him an out ball as a front man? There's an option there. Calvin Phillips, does he play against his old team? Or can he play against his old team on loan? I don't know if he can play, can he, against his parent club? Whereas Pep's been quite open before and allowed players to play. Don't know whether Calvin Phillips can play. Don't think it makes any difference. What were you going 5? I'm either 4 or 6. 4-0.
4-0. Okay. 4-0. Sorry, Ipswich fans, if you're watching, but it's just welcome to the Premier League. This is what it is, and you know how it is. They are the shortest price, of course, Man City. 1.1 to win against Ipswich. Right, next up is Spurs taking on Everton. 1.44 for Spurs, already hurting and looking at it as though 2 points dropped already. Everton are 6.8. There, both these sides are hurting. I think it's fair to say 4.9 for the tie. Your old club, Paul, so you got first picks on Spurs against Everton.
Yeah, it's a good game for Spurs to have. Everton, with Ashley Young suspended, they got picked apart by Brighton. Yes, they had the chances, they had the opportunities, but it looks like a tough start for Everton. Going to Spurs, I don't think Spurs will be hurting that much. I think Ange will be really pleased with the way that the team played. You could see after the game he was disappointed because they didn't take the chances, the opportunities that they created. I mean, there was times in the first half, I was commentating on the game, they were touching 80% possession in the first half away at Leicester. Granted, we know that Leicester are going to struggle this year, but there's still a team there that have got to be beaten away from home. I thought Spurs were excellent in the attacking third. James Maddison was brilliant. You look at the quality that they brought off the bench, they just couldn't click. If they'd have got 2, they'd have got 3, they'd have got 4. They started the way that they started last season. I can't see Everton at home been a problem for Spurs. I think this is another one for your Hackers. This is a comfortable win for me for Tottenham.
Scoreline?
3-0.
3-0. 3-0 for Spurs. 3-0 for Spurs. Last 3 meetings at Spurs for Everton. Everton have conceded 9 across those 3. A 2-1 defeat, 2-0 defeat, and a 5-0 defeat back in 2022. Spurs against Everton. Neil, score prediction, please.
Yeah, comfortable home victory for me as well. Slanky to get himself a goal. Here you go. Everton haven't beaten Spurs away since 2008 with fans. COVID season doesn't count, of course. Who got the own goal, the winning goal? 1-0 it was for Everton. It was Croatian. It was the Croatian that scored the own goal to win it for Everton.
Not
Nico Krankia.
Ooh, good guess. But no, he plays for Man City as well, this Croatian.
Not Krankia. Oh, Koluka, Vedran Koluka.
Did you play with him?
No, was gone by then.
It was him. It was him. Anyway, I've got Everton not to get anything again, but maybe a goal. I've got 3-1 for Spurs.
Just like me, not getting anything this morning. Just like me. He's one of those forgotten footballers, isn't he? Oh, yeah, Koluka. God, yeah, I remember him. Of course I do. Clearly not in enough time to answer that question. So you've gone for a fairly comfortable victory for Spurs. 3-0, Paul. 3-1 for Neil. And the final game of the Matchday 2 preview here at sportsbet.io. Bournemouth against Newcastle, the Eddie Howe derby. No one calls it. Bournemouth at 3.1, Newcastle at 2.16, and at 3.8 for the tie. Neil, with or without question, we don't know what's coming now. Where the show goes, nobody knows. What's your thinking score prediction for Bournemouth-Newcastle?
Yeah, fancy Newcastle. I think it'd be a bit an indifferent season for Bournemouth. No Solanke. I think they'll be okay in terms of relegation, but I think Newcastle will go there having been a little bit frustrated last week. They did win the game, but because of that sending off, it wasn't as convincing as what they would have liked. And maybe got away with it with the win. I think they'll be more convincing to go down there to Bournemouth and get the victory. They've struggled. They have struggled. They haven't won down there since 2015, so they are due a victory. So, but they've got a victory for Newcastle. 2-1 away win.
2-1 for Newcastle. What about you, Paul? Score prediction, Bournemouth-Newcastle.
Tough one to call this. Evan Nielsen, where he comes in the record signing to replace Solanke. Does he get a start? Jefferson, does he come into the side? Unal, does he come into the side? Sinistera played last time on the left. They're a decent outfit at home, Bournemouth, but it's difficult to back against Newcastle. But they have had the struggles on the south coast. This is the only game I generally haven't got anything written down for. This could go either way, but I think Newcastle have just got that bit more quality. So I too am going to go for a Newcastle win, but a bit closer, 1-0.
1-0. Dominic Solanke scored both goals for Bournemouth in the 2-0 victory at home to Newcastle last year. I think that's when Newcastle literally had no players. That was literally at their absolute peak of casualty FC, where they literally had no players, and it was a really flat performance at Bournemouth. Although towards the end of last season, Newcastle were their side to watch away from home. They won 4-1 at Burnley, lost 3-2 at Man United, and won 4-2 at Brentford. So Newcastle away from home, plenty of goals towards the end of last season. But you've both gone for Newcastle to win. 1-0 for Newcastle for Paul, and 2-1 for Neil. Guys, thank you for your time today as we look ahead to match day 2.
Gav, get me treble. Here's me treble.
Go on, yes, your treble. Go on, then let's go for it.
He wants to keep this new game going.
Go on.
There's always a couple of bankers and then a risky one. So my bankers are Liverpool and Fulham, and my risky one is Chelsea. So Liverpool, Fulham and Chelsea is my treble this weekend.
I'd need a much bigger price on Chelsea to be tempted by them. I really, really do.
What's Paul's treble? Must be Spurs. Spurs must be in there.
I'll tell you, my treble wins. I guarantee you money. If you back this treble this weekend, you won't get you a lot, but I guarantee you that my treble wins this weekend.
Go on.
Man City, Tottenham and Liverpool.
Okay.
There's some free money for you. There's free money. Go and enjoy it.
Whatever your bets are, always please do gamble responsibly. Well, we'll be back for match day 3. We'll look back on your predictions at 10-5 after week 1. That was the scoreline. So Paul claims week 1. Who will claim week 2? And how will the trebles fare? Whatever your bets are for match day 2 of the Premier League, please do gamble responsibly.